New Zealand ranks #1 in the world for ease of doing business. In 2024, it recorded its highest rate of business closures in 20 years. Nearly 10 businesses shut down every single week in hospitality alone. Retail closures accelerated across Auckland, Wellington, and Christchurch. Trades, professional services, anyone selling something people can't delay, all contracting at the same time. The World Bank ranking measures company registration, permits, contract enforcement. It says nothing about what happens after you open the doors. New Zealand is one of the most unaffordable housing markets in the world. The median Auckland home costs more than 11 times the median annual income. The 4 largest banks operating in New Zealand are all Australian-owned and redirected over 60% of their lending into residential property last year. Not into businesses, not into innovation, not into productivity, into land.
Very mindful of the cost of living crisis and the pressure that New Zealanders are under. And that's why you're seeing us cut the wasteful spending and actually bring inflation interest rates down. And finally, the economy is growing.
In the year to September 2025, 72,700 New Zealanders left the country, a new record. They were not retirees. They were builders, engineers, and entrepreneurs in their late 20s and early 30s.
For 12 months, we've seen 70,000 New Zealand citizens leaving to live in another country, about 60% of them going to Australia. That's the highest we've ever seen it.
New Zealand produces enough food to feed 40 million people. Its grocery prices rank among the highest in the developed world. The businesses charging these prices are not setting them. They are inheriting them from monopolies above their supply chain, from a tax code that punishes growth, from a banking system that funds land instead of enterprise. The money passes through the owners and lands somewhere else entirely. This video traces where it goes. Two supermarket chains control 90% of grocery retail in New Zealand. The Commerce Commission investigated and found that they had been generating excess returns of $430 million per year between 2015 and 2019. That is not profit from efficiency or innovation. It is extraction, taken from every customer and every small food producer who had no alternative. New Zealand dairy exporters price their product for Singapore, Dubai, and Shanghai, not for the Wellington cafe owner down the road from the farm. New Zealand earns in one of the smaller currencies in the world, but competes for its own produce against buyers backed by the world's largest economies. The food gets made here, the price gets set somewhere else. A handful of building material distributors use certification requirements to block cheaper imports from Australia and Japan. Basic construction supplies cost 20 to 30% more in New Zealand than across the Tasman. A business fitting out premises or expanding a kitchen pays that premium with no alternative and no recourse. New Zealand's electricity market is dominated by gentailers, companies that both generate and sell power in a closed loop. Formal accusations of deliberately withholding hydro generation to push spot prices higher were investigated. The structure remained unchanged. Before a small business makes its first sale, before a single customer walks in, it has already paid the food duopoly, the building cartel, and the energy market just to exist. When a customer finally taps their card fees between 1.5 and 2.5% leave immediately, split between the bank and an overseas card network. The government recently moved to ban businesses from passing this cost on through surcharges, calling it consumer protection. What actually happens is the business raises its base price. The bank still gets paid, the card network still gets paid, the cost doesn't disappear. It goes underground, and the price increase gets blamed on the business owner instead of the payment network collecting it.
Is New Zealand in a state of decline? A recent tour of Wellington painted a grim picture. Boarded up shop fronts, deserted malls, and disillusioned locals who said they were struggling to find employment, that they were sick of capitalism. One tradie who was taking his lunch break revealed that he was eating tuna out of a can, while another said that he lived in a tent.
New Zealand has no capital gains tax on residential property. A landlord who holds a house for 10 years and sells it for double pays nothing on that gain. A business owner who builds a company over the same period pays income tax on every dollar of profit along the way. The tax code does not say it openly, but the financial incentive between these two options is not close. Provisional tax ensures that the moment a business starts to work, the system moves against it. The IRD calculates obligations based on last year's income and demands prepayment of next year's bill on top of the current year. A business who grows from $120,000 to $180,000 in profit, someone who worked hard, hired help, finally gained traction, can face a combined tax obligation that exceeds their entire cash position. The best year the business ever had becomes the year it runs out of money. This is why New Zealand has one of the lowest rates of business scaling in the OECD. Staying small is not a failure of ambition. It is the rational response to an architecture that punishes growth. Economists have pointed at New Zealand's productivity problems for decades. Output per worker consistently underperforms OECD benchmarks. The standard explanation involves culture or geography. The actual explanation sits in the bank's lending data. Under Basel banking standards adopted by New Zealand's Reserve Bank, mortgage lending carries a lower capital requirement than business lending. A bank earns a better return on a home than on a loan to a manufacturer. So that is where the money goes. Over 60% of all lending flows into residential property. Businesses that need capital to replace 15-year-old machinery are competing for what remains. A business owner with a plan to double output gets a slow answer, a high rate, and a request for the family home as security. The same owner asking to borrow against an investment property gets an immediate approval and better terms. Australia's compulsory superannuation has built a pool of over $3.5 trillion in retirement savings cycling continuously into productive investment, businesses, infrastructure, and innovation. New Zealand's KiwiSaver is voluntary, far smaller, and has never generated a comparable pool of domestic capital directed at enterprise. New Zealand businesses are not underproductive because the people running them lack ambition. They are running 15-year-old equipment because the capital that might replace it is sitting in a rental property down the road. Pull back from the individual mechanisms and a single cycle becomes visible. Banks pour capital into housing. Property values climb. Landlords raise commercial rents. Monopolies raise input costs, food, energy, materials. Business owners absorb increases from every direction and raise prices to survive.
Made I live in a tent.
Oh, really? Do you want to talk about it or?
Housing prices, like government putting money into things that aren't necessary, whereas there's other things necessary, like keeping it local, locally owned and operated. Shipping things overseas and then bringing it back here, costing more.
But consumers are already stretched. Rent up, mortgage up, grocery bill up. They cut spending on everything that isn't essential. Demand for non-essentials falls while costs keep rising. Margins collapse. Government adds compliance requirements that a corporate absorbs in an afternoon, and a small business owner loses a weekend to. No research and development incentive, no accessible capital, no competition policy with teeth. The rational decision becomes close or leave. Those who leave take skills, enterprise, and tax revenue with them. The economy contracts, the tax base shrinks, and at the center of all of it, protected from every direction, house prices keep climbing. That is not a series of separate problems. It is one machine. New Zealand's political stability across 3 decades has been built on raising property values. When house prices rise, the majority of homeowners, who are also the majority of voters, feel financially secure. A capital gains tax would put downward pressure on that. Compulsory superannuation would redirect capital away from property.
House prices have plummeted across the ditch. Home values in New Zealand reached an all-time high during the pandemic, but they've fallen back to 2019 levels.
Real competition enforcement would compress the returns of companies whose shareholders include many of those same homeowners. So instead, there are working groups, consultation documents, seminars on digital capability for small businesses. The core architecture, the monopolies, the banks, the land, stays untouched. Other countries have changed this. The results are documented. Australia made superannuation compulsory in 1992. The intention was retirement security. The outcome was the largest pool of domestically directed productive capital in the Southern Hemisphere. Businesses could access funding that had not previously existed. The mechanism worked because it was compulsory. voluntary schemes do not build the same pool. Ireland introduced research and development tax credits and restructured corporate tax settings in the 1990s. A country with no natural resources became a European technology hub within a generation. Clear incentives pointing in a different direction produced a different outcome. Denmark enforces grocery competition with real consequences, not investigations that conclude and leave the structure intact. It runs one of the most competitive food markets in Europe despite being a small country. New Zealand has the productive land, the institutions, and the talent when it stays. What it has not had is a political incentive structure that makes building more attractive than holding. 72,700 New Zealanders left in a single year, a new record, and they keep leaving. The question is, how many more have to leave before the architecture changes? I'll see you in the next one.